This is Between the Brackets, a Mediawiki podcast, episode 29, March 5th, 2019. Welcome to Between the Brackets. I'm Yaron Koren. My guest for this episode is Sam Wilson, who is a software engineer in the community tech team for the Wikimedia Foundation. I've talked before about all the different countries that have been represented on this show. I've interviewed people from 11 different countries for this podcast so far, but now I get to add not just a new country to the list, but a whole new continent, because Sam is from none other than a land down under, the great country of Australia. I'm excited to talk to him in part because he straddles the worlds of the Wikimedia Foundation and so-called Enterprise Mediawiki to the extent that few other people do, so I'm interested to hear his perspective on things. Sam, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So, where do you live in Australia?
I'm in Fremantle, which is on the west coast, near Perth. So yeah, it's a bit of an isolated place, the most isolated capital city in the world, we like to say.
Oh, I see, because it's the capital of the state that you're in?
Yeah, that's right.
Which is which is Perth or Western Australia?
Western Australia.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Is there any kind of tech scene there?
It's fairly nascent and small, but there's definitely a growing community. I've had a bit to do with a couple of the co-working spaces and sort of startup things, but yeah, it's not a big industry here. Yeah,
okay. I know you're interested in genealogy, including your own family history. I have a question that you may find offensive, but hopefully not. One of the stereotypes about Australians is that they're all, or at least all the ones of British ancestry, are all descended from criminals from 200 or so years ago. So how did your ancestors end up in Australia?
Not as criminals. It's funny. There are, there is certainly a number of people here who are descended from convicts, but the West Coast was not actually a penal colony. They did have convicts for a little while, but not a huge number of them. My family came here in 1830. Amongst the first settlers, basically been here ever since.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, thanks for dispelling that stereotype. So moving on, I get the sense that besides Mediawiki, which of course I want to talk about, you're involved in quite a few other open source and open data projects. What's the full list of projects you're involved in?
Depends what the threshold is for involved. I try and contribute to whatever I can and whatever takes my fancy. The probably the biggest outside of Wikimedia world is OpenStreetMap. I try and do a bit of mapping whenever I can, and I find that these days there's such a growing connection between Wikidata and OpenStreetMap that it becomes more and more satisfying to, things like, especially with Cartographer these days, taking geometry from OpenStreetMap for display on Wikipedia articles. It's a great impetus to go out and map streets and buildings and different routes and things like that, because they then can be used in Wikipedia articles. I think OSM is probably the thing that's closest to my heart at the moment. I don't actually do any real sort of programming work to do with OSM, and I think that's actually one of the other things I quite like about having a sort of slightly related hobby, but I seem to have avoided the trap of I'm enjoying this thing, so I'm going to write some tool, and then you spend all your time writing tools and never actually doing the thing.
Yeah, and I guess in the case of OpenStreetMap, that's an even more even more different sort of activity. Because with OpenStreetMap, what are you doing? Biking around and that sort of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, walking and biking and taking photos, and it's all about getting outside. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's probably
Right. Yeah, getting into
the
tool
crucial
development
thing.
would defeat the purpose.
Get away from the screen for a while.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's really cool. So there are areas you bike around in that are unmapped, previously unmapped.
Yeah, like Australia is a great place for finding things that haven't been mapped very well, unfortunately. Yeah, it was funny when I first went to Europe a few years ago. I'd been using OSM in Australia for a few years before that, and then I realised that so much of Europe is so incredibly well mapped that actually, you can use OSM to find your way out of a subway and across a city, and it's all the detail is there. And so coming back to Australia, it was it raised the bar of we are lacking a lot of data here. I mean, we have bigger distances and fewer people doing the editing, but yeah, there's a lot to be done. It's exciting.
Yeah, that's really cool. How did you get the open source open data bug? I guess did it start from a specific project or was it more than that?
That's a good
philosophical
question.
thing.
I don't know. I mean, I think it probably, in a way, it did start from the genealogy. My grandmother was a historian and sort of always told me stories about the family and had lots of documents and family trees and things. And I think when you start researching family history, you quickly, well, if you have a sort of slightly nerdy bent, you quickly start coming up with systems for tracking people and places and dates and times and everything and documents. And so it's quite an easy jump from that into the world of data structures and trying to model the real world in code or in data.
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's a I don't know, like I think there's the more I learn and the more I work on stuff, the less I know and the less I feel like there is a solution to anything. So that's maybe a slightly depressing thought, but
well, that's a sufficiently nihilistic way to get the interview started. Do you have training in computer science?
Yes, yeah. I started training in visual arts, furniture making, wooden furniture making, and after doing a diploma in that, I switched to an IT degree, and for various reasons, mostly around job prospects, I think.
Okay.
And an interest in programming. So yeah, I did a few years of a degree, but I never actually finished it.
Okay. You haven't graduated from college?
No, not yet. I think I've probably left it too long now. I did go back a few years ago and try and finish the last semester's worth or something via evening courses and things, but it's a hard slog.
Sure.
Yeah, and really, I mean, I don't think many people in this industry think a degree is necessary.
No, nobody cares after your first job or so. It really doesn't matter. That's true. Just it's just I don't know what the word is. Just if you're fine with it, that's the only issue. I think it's fine.
I think there's like I can't think of any other industry. Well, I don't know. One of the good things about the IT world is the sort of the feeling that you can do well at something and that's it. That's the end of the story. You don't have to sort of have the bit of paper that proves that you've done well. It's like your work can speak for itself a bit. And that's probably the other thing about open source, is that your work is public and can be seen and appreciated or used by other people.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, I thought you were going to go in a different direction, but yeah, in terms of a counterweight to the credentialism, I guess you could say, of getting a college degree, where the value of it is just the fact that you have it. Yeah, open source really provides a totally alternate approach to that, where you can just point to all the code you have on GitHub or whatever and say, this is proof that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's pretty inspiring like that, I think.
Yeah. So, how did you end up in the Mediawiki world?
So I was working at a company that manages electrical infrastructure maintenance. So, like in Western Australia, there's 1.2 million wooden power poles across the state. And we had a database of all of those power poles and their maintenance schedules and all sorts of information about them. And I was on the team responsible for maintaining software for tracking the poles and the work and the people and the vehicles and the tools and all of that sort of stuff. And at the same time, the company was setting up an intranet. They were going through an ISO 9000 accreditation process and needed a system for tracking documentation. And I put my hand up and said, "Oh, what about Mediawiki? That could work pretty well." And no one knew what it was, but I sort of sketched out a few ideas about how it could work, and they thought it looked pretty good. And so we set that up using Semantic Mediawiki.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, actually, I think we initially didn't use Semantic Mediawiki. I think we did something else for a little while, and it didn't work very well. But yeah, so then we set up this whole sort of convoluted process of so the thing about like ISO 9000 documentation is all modifications need to be tracked and approved, and so we needed a sort of approved revs or flagged revs type of setup. Except we didn't use either of those extensions. We did it based on like semantic property values. I
see. Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, it was a bit odd, and bit by bit, I think we sort of overcomplicated things. But it was good fun from my point of view. It was, we were getting to build this sort of interesting system in Mediawiki, and I think the thing that I found at that point was like two parts of it, two sort of prongs. One good one that like it was rapid application development. It was this thing of like, oh well, we need this data model, quick, throw it in and get it running, and there it is. And the other one was the sort of how much gets embedded in Mediawiki templates and modules and things, like how much of the business logic and the user interface and just the application itself is basically the running system.
Right.
Yeah, I think that became a bit of an issue of like, well, how do you test something? How do you roll out a beta feature in that environment? And that became a bit tricky in some things.
Yeah. Well, you can have a test wiki, I guess, but it adds more work.
Yeah. Well, I think we might have explored doing that and like having like a nightly mirror of the production one, and then being able to play with the real data and stuff. But yeah, I'm not quite sure how that ended up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What year was that? Do you remember that whole thing?
Oh, I was made redundant from that job in 2015, I think.
Oh, okay.
So it was probably like
2011
or something, 11 or 12.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. We had that intranet for a few years, and then the company got bought by a big company that used SharePoint, and so we all got sent off on SharePoint training. But the transition from that to SharePoint never actually happened. The company got bought again, and that got scratched.
Oh.
So, for all
So
I
are
know,
they
there's still a server running somewhere with all of that stuff still on it. So.
Is it still being used?
I've no idea. I'm not in touch with
Okay.
anyone there
Yeah,
anymore.
right,
So
right.
yeah. It would surprise me. I mean, yeah, I don't know. They went through too many different owners to have any sort of long-term corporate memory, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that was around 2011. You worked there for a while, I guess. Were you ever mostly doing wiki stuff, or was it always a side thing?
No, it was mostly. I mean, maybe it was 15 or 20% of my work.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but it definitely got me more interested in it. I explored writing a few extensions, and yeah, that was the first time I sort of was exposed to Mediawiki code.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. I didn't know you got started with Semantic MediaWiki. I guess you're another member of the list of people who made the jump from the Semantic MediaWiki community into the Wikimedia Foundation. You left that job or were made redundant. I like that. It's a Britishism, I guess. I don't know.
Right. It's not a US term. Yeah,
No,
that
they
just
don't
means
no, they
you
don't
if your job is declared not to exist anymore, they can't
Yeah.
fire you. They have to let you go, but they give you a bit of a payout, and it's not on bad terms.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was quite good. So I was made redundant in 2015 or 16.
Yeah.
And got a bit of a payout, and at the same time sold a house that I had, and so I didn't have a job. I had a bit of money and nowhere to live, and so eventually ended up going to Wikimania in Esinolario in Italy.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that was the what really got me into Wikimedia, and what ultimately led to me getting the job that I've got now.
Okay. Wow. So you met the developers and got a good feeling about it or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they were looking for someone, a software developer with skills that I thought I had, and yeah, thanks to Naharika and others prompting me to apply for a job that I, at the time, thought I had no chance of getting. I gave it a go, and here I am, a couple of years later.
Yeah.
Going
Did you
pretty
have to
well.
learn PHP, or had you done already some MediaWiki programming?
No, so basically, my previous job was all PHP.
Okay.
And so, yeah, very much the sort of, the work I do now is really around, it's all PHP and JavaScript web tools, and not a huge amount of MediaWiki development itself, although that might be changing this year a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of it is sort of standalone tools.
I wanted to ask about that, but just briefly. So when was it that you joined the Wikimedia Foundation? Was it 2016?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, towards the end of the year, I think. Yeah. Oh,
okay. Oh, so you really haven't been there that long, 2+ years or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what kinds of projects have you worked on since you joined?
Oh, a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, so Community Tech does a annual wishlist survey to decide what to work on, and that's a survey of all editors. Well, hopefully all who want to take part, and so any editors can propose any projects, and then everyone votes on which ones they want to be done, and then we work on the top voted ones.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the methodology, and yeah. So at the moment, I'm working on SVG Translate, which is a little standalone tool for translating language strings in SVG files, and then re-uploading them. So you sort of download the file and add a new language to it, and then re-upload it to the same file on Wikimedia Commons.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That I'm aware of that project. It started out as a Google Summer of Code project, no? Do you know?
Yeah, I think it started out in two different ways. One was an extension, a Mediawiki extension, and one was a standalone tool.
Okay.
I can't remember which was the GSOC project.
I think the extension. So this is totally different. It's different software.
Yeah, no. So this uses the guts of the extension.
I see.
But gives it a new front end.
Yeah. Okay. It's no longer running within the wiki.
Yeah, because it doesn't really need to be. I mean, it's always a bit of a toss up which way you go. Extensions can give a pretty good user experience, but are also a bit more of a pain to maintain in lots of ways, and slower to deploy. And
Sure.
Yeah. So standalone tools are. I don't know. I think we're probably doing more of them than we are doing Mediawiki development.
Yeah. Okay. And that'll be the case for the foreseeable future, that you'll be doing mostly tool development.
Well, in the coming year, we've got a few things. I can't think of any off the top of my head. One of the ones I'm excited about is improving the EPUB export from Wikisources.
Okay.
So that's an existing tool. That
EPUB is an ebook. That's the main ebook format.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it basically takes the HTML that's generated by Mediawiki and bundles it up with some metadata and things into an EPUB. Yeah,
that's really cool. And then you can have old books that you generate ebooks from them on the fly, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit like Project Gutenberg, for instance,
Right.
generate ebooks, EPUBs, but they do it from some fairly odd systems of HTML generation. So sometimes they don't work so well. Yeah. Just
briefly, I'm just interested in the mechanics of how you work for the Wikimedia Foundation. Given that you're basically halfway around the world from the San Francisco office, how does that work in practice?
It is. So I'm in UTC +8, which is a bit of a lonely time zone. Even though a third of the world's population is in this time zone.
Okay.
India doesn't have enough.
Is in that time zone, right?
China.
China, yeah.
Is UTC +8. And India is not far away, an hour and a half away.
Okay.
It's slightly tricky, but it's quite good. Like, I have daily team meetings, which are sort of stand-up, like morning stand-up meetings, which is great because it is first thing in the morning for me, whereas for everyone else it's sort of last thing in the afternoon before they go home.
Okay. Yeah.
So it actually works really well from my point of view. It's normally sort of 6 or 7 a.m. meetings, and sometimes in winter it could be 5 a.m., which sort of getting towards a bit early, but I'm a bit of a morning person, so it's great. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think the thing about the Wikimedia Foundation being more and more sort of intentionally accommodating of remote workers, or not even accommodating, but like sort of we're all remote, and that everything we do should be as good as possible for remote work, and I think that's a really good ethos. I think there's probably still lots of room for improvement, but I don't know, it works pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the 29th episode of this podcast, and I still have yet to talk to anyone who works there at the office. I talked to one guy who's there one day a week. That was the closest
All right.
we got.
Yeah. Well, I just recently got back from California, and I was there for 9 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I went for a team offsite in December, and then there was the annual all hands meeting in January. So I just, instead of coming back and then going back again in between them, I just stayed put.
Yeah.
And it was also a good opportunity to experience what it's like working from the head office.
Yeah.
And I think I was probably surprised at the, like I think that the obvious things of having a bit more social contact and a bit more sort of casual interaction with other people is good. Like, there's no doubt that working at home remotely is a little bit isolating.
Sure.
But the immediate flip side of that is that you can focus and concentrate and work at home. Like, I find it, there's no distractions. If you're in the zone, you stay in it for longer. So that works really well. I think probably being in the office, I'm less productive, and yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I work from home too, and it really is nice to just be able to focus. Absolutely. And I guess partly it depends on the floor plan, but most tech places, is just generally speaking. I think maybe the WMF office the same way with the open floor plan. It's become, I think it's fallen a little bit out of favor in the last few years, but well, anyway, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they do it, but it can,
What do you mean?
It can be distracting.
Oh, definitely. I haven't heard of any companies moving to individual offices though. I mean,
I haven't heard of that either.
Sounds expensive.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think there's having regular video conferencing and basically just making sure that all work proceeds on issue trackers.
Yeah.
It works pretty well. I mean, software development is a written thing, so
yeah. And the projects you're working on are mostly, in most cases, you're the main developer on those projects, or you're not. There's no
we try and share
overlap.
we try and overlap on all projects.
Oh, okay.
But we seem to fall into a sort of, I don't know if it's a good habit of having your sort of main project and helping out on others, but sticking to one main one at a time.
Yeah.
Because you get sort of attached to a code base and you want to keep working on it. I think that's the thing. Yeah.
I want to switch gears a little. As I mentioned, you're also involved in the enterprise Mediawiki world, and of course that's how you got your start. You've sent me some patches for the cargo extension, which has been great. I know you still run a few different Mediawiki based wikis. What are they, and how much work is that?
It's So the main one I'm working on at the moment. Well, I was going to say, yeah. So there's a few that like my personal website is Mediawiki. I've got a few family only sites for photo sharing and various other things. And I've got a public genealogy or general sort of historical documentation site called ArchivesWiki. That's at archives.org.au. And that runs cargo. And it sort of it's pretty messy at the moment. I keep meaning to do more work on it before I start documenting the the norms of it because I keep changing things. But it's I find it a really good way to. So I've been working with quite a lot of sort of family letters and diaries and photos and documents from the 19th and early 20th centuries, and so I scan a lot and I put it all onto Mediawiki, and so Cargo in that scenario is used as the metadata management system, and works incredibly well for that. And I find it's really quick to add stuff. One of the recent things that I've been enjoying is the display title extension. Is that what it's called?
Oh,
title
yeah.
display.
Sure. Display title. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Cindy wrote it, or has done some work on it. Yeah. And so I've got that set up with the I can't remember what the config's called.
Sorry.
Yeah. There's a config that basically anywhere you use an unpiped wiki link, it displays the redirect target.
Right.
So the full title. So if you, for instance, you start off writing an article about something and you link to Joe Blogs, and then later on you decide that actually, it was Joseph Blogs, you don't have to go back and correct it everywhere. It will automatically display the full title. And I think in the genealogy scope, that works really well for because page titles are unique, and so anywhere you see that link, it's the same person. It's a tiny little extension. It doesn't really do very much, but I love it.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's a nice plug. It is quite useful. There's also the Wikimedia Australia wiki, or
that's correct.
Like
Yeah. So we run 2 wikis for Wikimedia Australia. One is a closed committee only one, and one is the main public website, wikimedia.org.au. And that also is running Cargo. We've been experimenting with using that for event management, and it's sort of working. There's a few sort of tricky points and a few things we need to try and rejig. One thing we were talking about recently was being able to export iCalendar feeds from it, so that people could subscribe to coming events and have them displayed in Google Calendar or wherever else they have a normal calendar. So that's something I've sort of vaguely thought about working on, but I don't know. There's only so many hours in the day.
Sure. It would be cool if that's if the feature request is to have iCalendar export in Cargo. That could definitely be useful. And if you're offering to do it, then I definitely can.
Yeah, well, I don't know if anyone else has a need for it. I could probably be prodded into doing it, but.
All right. Well, I'll put your contact information.
Yeah.
The episode. So has running your own wikis and that set of however many it is, has that affected your view of what the priorities for Mediawiki should be? I mean, does it as a developer, sorry.
Yeah. No. I think I know what you mean. Like, I totally think that there is this tension in the Wikimedia Foundation around Mediawiki, and it's sort of is it a open source project that the world uses, or is it the thing that the movement uses to run Wikipedia and associated sites?
Sure.
Like I think that is a pretty widely thought about tension, because it's basically it's the tool that we use to run Wikipedia, and so anything we need gets priority. Anything that Wikipedia or the other sites need is the direction that Mediawiki goes in. But I actually sort of don't feel like there is so much of a tension if you think about Mediawiki as the best possible software for running an encyclopedia. And the definition of encyclopedia can be all sorts of things, and that's why it works for a company intranet, for instance, because that's the same sort of thing. It's the same sort of knowledge management system.
Right.
And so I think, personally, I think more developers working on Mediawiki should run their own, because it does highlight a bunch of things that are sort of lacking, and that don't get prioritized within the foundation. But it's, I don't know, that's probably a pretty long lost cause. I don't think it's now going to go in that direction.
Well, yeah, I agree with you that these two things are not really contradictory. I guess the standard example of something that's much more a much higher priority for outside uses of MediaWiki is access control, of being able to set pages as readable only by some users and have that really stick.
That's true.
Not allow any loopholes.
Well, and I mean, not for read access, but for write access, that's now possible. You can
but write access was
control.
never as big an issue. I mean, if somebody edits something they're not supposed to, it's not the end of the world. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And of course, extensions like approved revs, as you mentioned, make it so really you never have to prevent anyone from editing anything, really. Maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, I think like I think there's been a couple of times maybe when I've been exposed to bugs that haven't come up in the Wikimedia context, but I've found them in my own context. And that's good. I think having lots of different types of systems running MediaWiki does end up with higher quality software. But I guess the cost is of more developer time in making things more robust for systems in which you can't control certain dependencies or other contexts like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually met once in person at the Wikimedia Developer Summit in 2017 in San Francisco, which was back when they let anyone attend. I guess you were you'd only been working there for a few months at that point.
Yeah, that's right.
I think we only talked for about a minute or so, but I distinctly remember that conversation. I guess you do remember that?
I think maybe I was trying to convince you to add RSS support to Cargo, which I still think I want to work on at some point. Even though RSS is a dead technology and no one uses it anymore. But, yeah. I do get inspired by talking to people using MediaWiki outside of Wikimedia, because it's sort of inspiring to hear different systems and different ways of using it.
Sure. Yeah. When I think about that conversation, I think about the context of it in that summit, which for me was kind of a strange experience. I think we talked right after I gave my big talk at that summit, where I was trying to convince people from the Wikimedia Foundation to use page forms and Cargo and the rest for all these projects they were trying to get done. The big thing was they wanted to have a single big calendar for all of Wikimedia, which I guess has been abandoned as an idea. I'm not sure. And there was something called the Wikipedia Library Project. Yeah, I mean, just one of those discussions that trails off, I guess. long-term discussion that trails off. Yeah, so it was just I had all my hopes pinned on this one talk, and I was basically getting no reaction at all from the few Wikimedia Foundation people who even came, except for you, and I think this guy Nicholas Lackstrom was there too. He was very supportive, but basically no one who would be in a position to do anything about it cared. Yeah, it was kind of demoralizing, but do you remember that talk? Do you remember that whole?
Look, I think I don't know, that like as far as systems for managing things like events or I think there's a Phabricator ticket maybe still open about, or no, it was closed maybe, about using semantic Mediawiki or something similar for even extension metadata on Mediawiki.org.
Sure, yeah,
that's quite a few years ago now, probably.
Right,
right. Yeah, I don't know what the sort of the reasoning is behind some technologies being accepted and some not. I think the general idea of metadata about pages being queryable is gaining traction in all sorts of ways. I think the technologies that are going to support that are, generally going to be Wikibase or similar things. So I think that's probably the direction for that. And there is, what's it called? There's another system that I heard someone talking about recently about recording metadata about pages such as things that get tagged at the moment on Wikipedia, for instance, needs proofreading or needs more references. That type of metadata doesn't currently belong in Wikidata, for instance, or it belongs in a local structured data system of some sort. And I think there's probably at some point there will have to be action done on that. English Wikipedia, for instance, has quite a few Wikipedias have a page assessments extension, which stores 2 pieces of metadata about each page, and that's exactly the sort of thing that like in my own personal wiki world I would use Cargo for, because it's effectively doing the same thing. It's creating another database table, and it's parsing out a bit of data from the wiki text and putting it into the database table, and then allowing you to look at it later or display it elsewhere on the wiki. And that's the general thing that Cargo or Semantic Mediawiki solve. And there's a whole bunch of other systems that do it in a non-general way, that do it for a specific single type of data, like a page class or page importance or
right.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a sort of a not invented here attitude, if you're familiar with that concept, that term?
Yeah. No, I know the term. Certainly, it's pretty widespread. I don't think so. I think probably it's more about the scale that things have to work at, especially around Wikipedias. Like I can build a little family history wiki with a few thousand pages, and it all works perfectly well using Cargo. I don't know if the same would hold if there were millions of articles and billions of page views.
That's true.
So,
maybe
I think that's probably some of the sort of reticence around other software.
Well, yeah,
I don't just mean Cargo.
We're not talking about
else.
two different things.
Yeah.
I mean, anything that's being used on Wikipedia as a whole, or one of those sites, is a whole other story from using something on MediaWiki.org or some internal site that's has a fraction of the traffic or usage.
Yeah.
Or data volume.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I sort of clouded the issue there by asking after you had already switched to talking about Wikipedia. You created an extension called TemplateWizard, which I guess is intended for use on Wikimedia sites. It seems like sort of a lightweight version of the so-called TemplateWizard that the visual editor provides.
Yeah. It's built for use on Wikimedia sites, but it's completely wiki agnostic. I run it on my own wikis. It's built to sort of mirror the visual editor template editor, but I think it's improved in a few areas and not quite as good in some other areas. There's a patch open at the moment. I'm not quite sure of its status, for loading existing templates in the template editor, and I think that would make it a super useful tool, to be able to click anywhere in the wiki text of a template and then click the toolbar button and have that template open in a form so that you don't accidentally merge parameters or corrupt the template in some other way.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's still work to be done on it.
Is it already being used somewhere?
Yeah, it's on Wikipedia's.
Is it on the English language Wikipedia?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it's still a beta feature.
Oh, okay. That explains.
So
why
you have to turn it on. Yeah, it's used by a few thousand people, I think, or maybe more. I haven't got the stats right here.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. If anyone wants to try it out, if you're on Wikipedia, I guess you can go to beta features and enable the TemplateWizard.
Yep. And I mean, actually, that another project we worked on last year was global preferences. So you could enable it on a beta feature on all wikis from one place.
Oh, okay.
So you can turn it on globally.
Yeah. Well, this question might be redundant, but what do you think of Mediawiki as software in terms of just its biggest strengths and weaknesses at the moment?
I think its biggest strengths, I think, are stability and a really, I think using open source software that is backed by a well-managed organization that has a future is a really good thing. I think I've run into a few open source projects that I've decided to use and put data into and thought, oh well, at least it's open source, so I'll be able to use it forever. And then they've sort of withered away. And yeah, sure, it's open source, so you can keep using it, but that's different from it's going to exist and still be maintained and still be supported. Yeah. So I think that's like Mediawiki. I think without the foundation behind it, would maybe not still exist. I mean, there's plenty of other PHP projects from the same era that no one ever thinks about anymore.
Sure, not just PHP.
yeah, exactly. So I think, like, I really like the thing of, I don't know, like, it's a love-hate relationship with Wikitext, for instance, but it's been there a long time and it's going to be there a long time, and so I feel okay about putting data into it and keeping it forever.
Yeah.
So I think that's the. I think that the sort of downsides of some of that stuff is that I would like to be able to recommend, like for instance, we get inquiries at Wikimedia Australia now and then about people who want to run their own Mediawiki install for tracking whatever they might be doing. And it's really quite hard to sort of say, yeah, do it. It's great software and you'll be fine. And because actually running a site is not marvelously easy. I mean, I don't find it hard, but I know that it's not. It doesn't come naturally to lots of people.
Yeah, you're talking about the initial setup, installing everything, or day-to-day.
No,
running?
I think lots of people. I think people who can figure out how to get it installed. Obviously they're the people who we should be aiming at helping. But I think the ongoing maintenance and compared to, I mean, I hate to bring it up, but like WordPress, for instance, has this really big culture of slightly technical, but not completely, not system administration level people being able to install it and run it and use it.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, there's like this user friendliness that sort of fits the world of people who are happy to buy a shared hosting or a virtual machine and install stuff, but they're not completely cluey about it, and they want the software to sort of hold their hand a bit, and we don't really hold anyone's hand, I think. And I think that's a bit of, it's a shame in a way, because I don't think it would take a huge amount to have, a thing that tells you which of your extensions is out of date, or some little things like that. Well, maybe they're not so little, I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I thought maybe you were talking about extension management and all that kind of stuff, like being able to install or update an extension directly from the web interface.
Well, I mean, that's a whole other. I know there's discussion about that. I don't know where that's going to end up. Obviously, the security implications are pretty enormous.
So that's interesting. You're really just talking about something that signals to you, this extension is out of date, or this extension is incompatible with this other extension, and that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one example. Or, configuration management. I don't know if at some point we are going to have more in wiki, via the web UI configuration modification. That seems to have been the idea when the extension.json schema was introduced.
Right,
that there's all these features in it for describing
these
configuration
are all the
variables, for instance. Yeah, but we're not. Like why? Maybe at some point we'll do that, but those features only really help third-party users. So.
Well, let me take a moment to plug my extension called Site Settings, which I'm not sure anyone uses. I think it's my least used extension, but it does provide an interface to. It lets other extensions hook in to provide an interface to change any of the settings for that extension, if that makes sense.
Oh, right.
It's basically a control panel thing. Yeah.
So does it use the config variables defined in extension.json?
No, each extension has to hook in and say these are my settings, and this is the HTML to modify each of these settings.
Oh, yeah.
So they're adding to the overall form.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's ideal. I've gotten very little feedback on it, but it is in use on Referata. That's the wiki farm that I run. But other than that, I don't know if anyone's using it. Anyway,
cool. I'll check it out.
Okay. Yeah, site settings. Maybe I'll get a second user for this thing. Yeah, I mean that's sort of been what I've been trying to do is make MediaWiki more user friendly and in different ways. But so yeah, that's definitely that's interesting. That makes sense as far as the strengths and weaknesses. I also wanted to ask about just the community. You've worked on other open source projects, I guess, besides MediaWiki. How do you think the MediaWiki developer community compares to other open source or open data communities that you've encountered?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's probably about the friendliest and
Oh, really?
sort of, I don't know, most interested. Yeah, I think it's really quite a good community to be part of. Yeah, I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but I think pretty much there's a sort of. So I used to do a bit of stuff with the WordPress world, and I think because WordPress is so sort of geared towards small web consultancies and things, there's an element of people are making a living out of it, and so they have a certain I don't know, glossy sort of corporatized idea about how it should go, which is sort of nice in a way, because there's things like, if you want to have a local WordPress meetup, there's rules about how you're meant to do that and how you're meant to portray it and how you're meant to run it. But if you want to have a local MediaWiki meetup, well, you probably just go to the pub with your laptop, and it's a bit more casual, and no one's really gonna be upset if you don't sort of toe the line about. So yeah, it's a bit more casual and a bit more.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant you'll just go by yourself, like it would be a.
Oh no,
yeah,
well,
okay, I get it.
You would if you're me, because there's no one else nearby hacking on MediaWiki. But yes, if you're in a better city than I'm in, you'll hopefully find more nerds to hack with.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I think there's and Drupal I think is similar, that there's a sort of there's more of a unified look and feel to the community, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there's other things like I think we're not very good at. I've read a bit that we don't review newcomers' code very quickly, and we're not very encouraging sometimes to people who are new to contributing. And I don't know. I try and do what I can to talk to people. But yeah, maybe some of those problems are a bit hidden, a bit hard to see without delving into it.
Yeah, well, that's why I think it's interesting to compare to other communities. I mean, obviously there are always going to be problems, but yeah, I'm always curious to see, how it is versus WordPress or whoever else, how we deal with welcoming newcomers and all that.
Yeah, I think we could definitely improve in some areas. For instance, if someone wants to create a new extension, it's a slightly convoluted process in some ways, but also we don't really have a system of I don't know, like anytime someone creates a new version of an extension on Mediawiki.org, we could have a Twitter bot, or or a sort of some post somewhere, or a page that lists recent releases, just to sort of spruik people a bit, spruik their work a bit more, and just have that sort of encouragement of someone out there has noticed that you've done a thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sure. Yeah. Right now, if you add something, it's like shouting into the wind or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that's not.
Well, in my RSS feed reader, I've got the feed of new pages created in the extension namespace, and 80% of them are just new translations. But every couple of weeks, there's a new extension page being created, and that's sort of interesting because it highlights when a new page is created, but it's generally people saying, "Oh, I'm thinking about this, placeholder," or "very beta. I'll come back later and I'll tell you where to find the code." Or, I'd say half the time you can't actually go to the new extension page and find out, and run the extension. Yeah.
Right, yeah, but in either case, it would be useful for people to see that and to put in their comments or whatever else.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's certainly a thing that we could improve with. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, cool. Well, I think that was all my questions, and this is man, sorry,
Yeah.
it's like I rarely do my podcast interviews this late. I'm like
yeah, totally. No, that's all right. Yeah. Well, I'm disappointed I'm not going to be coming to the EMWCon in April.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Yeah. That'll be good fun, but I don't think I can handle another trip to the States so soon.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit much, unless you want to stay there for a while.
Yeah.
Afterwards. Yeah, but anyone, if anyone's listening, thanks for that little plug. It's going to be April 3rd through 5th. Registration is open for those in the Antipodean side of things or anywhere else. If you're interested in coming and meeting fellow Enterprise Mediawiki users and developers, it'll be in San Francisco or right near San Francisco.
Cool.
Very good. Well, it was
Well, thank you for I really appreciate Between the Brackets. Like, I've been enjoying listening to people the last year or so.
That's great to hear.
It's good fun.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I wanted to ask. I mean, it's rare to talk to a dedicated listener such as yourself. I don't know. Do you have any feedback? I'm not sure if I'll include this or not, but
yeah. Oh, I don't know. Don't think so. No.
All right.
It pops up every so often on my
shorter episodes or longer episodes, or does it not really matter?
No, it's been good. Yeah, I've enjoyed the sort of slightly longer things. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I listen to a whole bunch of stuff, and it's definitely a highlight.
Very good, great. Well, we've reached a little over an hour now, so this is appropriately enough. This is a good length for an episode. Yeah, it was great talking to you. I learned a lot about a fellow Enterprise Mediawiki developer. Gosh, I'm completely incoherent at this point.
That's all right. Yeah, it's been good talking to you. I'll be heading back to the code this afternoon, and yep.
Sorry, heading back where?
Oh, getting back onto the keyboard.
Oh, heading back to the code.
Hacking.
Okay, yeah, I thought it was some...
the only place that's worth being. Yeah.
Sure. No, I thought you said Cove or something.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Cool. Well, thanks, Yaron. It's good talking to you.
Thank you, Sam. It was great talking to you. This has been another episode of Between the Brackets. I want to again thank my guest, Sam Wilson of the Wikimedia Foundation, and sorry for getting so tired at the end there. Next time if I record late at night, I'll probably take some caffeine. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.